If you're struggling with watercolor and don't know where to start, well, I've got you, because in this video I'm going to show you step by step how to paint this poppy seed head. I'm using a watercolor block today. This is an A5 size, and just remove the top sheet, which is always black. Okay, so with my tiny little eraser and my 0.5 mechanical pencil, I begin by just drawing out a very soft outline of the poppy seed head like this. I'm working from a couple of photographs and just kind of cobbling them together to get this simple outline like this. Now the purpose of the pencil lines is just to guide me. We don't want these to be sketchy edges, we want them just to be really clear as to where we're putting the watercolour paint. Now please don't worry if you don't like drawing or you feel that you can't do it, because I'll provide you with a free traceable and some reference photographs to work from, and I'll tell you later on in this video how you can obtain them for free. Just putting in the outline like this. This is a 0.5 mechanical pencil, so it's really nice fine point, and just adding in some shapes where I feel they are needed, just to guide me where I'm going to be applying the paint. Now if you're new to watercolour painting, remember that there's often a tricky phase that you need to go through, so I highly recommend that you watch this video all the way through so you can see all these steps unfold. Just a limited palette today. I'll explain to you the colours I've picked out as we work through. All the materials I will list in the description box underneath this video. The first colour that I'm using is Cerulean Green, and I'm mixing it there with a puddle of sepia. Now these are very, very watery washes, which means that they have a lot of water to pigment. Once I've applied a layer of water over the poppy seed head like this, I drop in my initial wash of a very watery mix of Cerulean Green, and you can see me also dropping in the mix of Cerulean with a tiny bit of sepia. The purpose of this wash is to form the base colour of the poppy seed head. You can see I have got a little bit too much water on my paper here. The trick is to really let the water sink into the paper before you apply your paint, but you can see how much easier it makes the handling of the paint when the paper is wet, so that it can move into those little crevices without too much trouble. I've added some more pigment to my palette here, the same colour as before, so we have Cerulean Green with a smidgen of sepia, and I'm just dropping it in just to guide me wet on wet, where these colours can be strengthened up a bit later on when that paint has dried. So watercolour is about building up layers. Once one layer is dry, you can apply your second layer, as I'm doing here. You can see that by just dropping in another layer like this, we can accentuate the little pattern that we have on the base of the poppy seed head, and just dropping it in wet on damp. I suppose this would be a damp paper. You can see how I'm just using my brush to do this. Now the brushes I'm using are from Rosemary Co. They are Snowdrop pointed rounds, and they have a very, very fine tip. This is a number 6, but as you can see it still has a fine point. Next up, I'm mixing yellow-orange with a tiny bit of Compose. Please use the nearest colours that you have within your own kit. I'm just applying this wet on dry, so that's straight onto the stalk like this with my number 6 round. These are synthetic brushes, by the way, so if you prefer to use a synthetic brush, then I highly recommend these. And as I said, all of the materials that I'm using today, if you're missing what I'm saying, I'll put them in the description box underneath this video so that you can check them out for yourself. So I'm just using that green mix on the top here, having used the Cerulean on the bottom. So just using the tip of that brush to push it into the pencil line. So because the poppy seed head is still damp, I can drop in some more Cerulean like this to give us a little bit more definition here and there where we feel it's needed. At the beginning of this video, I mentioned to you that we have, I'll supply you with a line drawing to accompany this video if you'd rather trace it down, along with some reference photographs that I'm working from. I actually used a couple of photos to draw this freehand, and there are a couple of ways that you can obtain them. So let's just find out how. We have a couple of ways that you can access our free reference photographs and line drawings. We have our very own private Facebook group, and as a member you can access all of them here. There is another way, and I'll tell you about that in a moment. And in case you're not a Facebook fan, and I know it's not for everybody, I just want to reassure you that our group is really friendly, really helpful and informative, and you can also post up your finished paintings and have feedback from me and our other group members. You can see here some of the completed works in the student gallery. Having positive feedback from your paintings is a great way to learn and a really amazing confidence booster. If this is something that interests you, I'll put a link to the Facebook group in the description underneath this video. But if Facebook really isn't for you, then don't worry, because I'll put a screenshot of the line drawing and the reference photograph right at the end of this video. So be sure to stay right until the end and you can print it off that way. Okay, so now I'm mixing some yellow lemon. You could use something like a cadmium lemon if you have that. And this is yellow orange, or something like an Indian yellow would work just as well. And I'm applying these mixed together on the top part of the poppy seed head like this. Dropping in some of that green tone with my number 2 size pointed round. I've run out of space on my palette here, so this is the second palette within the kit that I've used from Etcher, and I'm using a mixture of sepia with a tiny bit of yellow orange, and I'm using this wet on dry, also mixing up a puddle of Perylene with the sepia just to create some sort of wiggly marks on the bottom of the poppy seed head. I'm also dropping in some of the green tone, so that's our composed green with a tiny bit of yellow orange, just to add a bit of shading, as you can see me doing here. I'm just adding a tiny bit of the same mix and just using it to create a pattern on the stem. While I've got the mix on my brush, I'm just dragging down some of the colour. You can see I'm just drawing some lines in here. I'm just adding a bit more green here, using that number 2 size brush, picking up that colour and just dropping it in, just to give a little bit of variation. Just picking up some of that sepia mix. We have sepia with a tiny bit of green there, just dropping it in like this. The paint is still damp at this stage, so it means that it will just naturally blur into the paint. If you're enjoying botanical painting and you already have a little bit of experience, we do have a Patreon where we launch a brand new full-length painting tutorial every month, and they are far more in-depth. In case it interests you, let's take a look. If you love botanical painting and want to know more, then head over to our Patreon. We have different membership tiers so that you can take your botanical painting to the next level. Every month we launch a brand new painting tutorial covering all things botanical to help you grow. The tutorials are exclusive to Patreon and are ad-free, so if you want to paint like this, then take a look. Link in description. Okay, so going back to the job in hand here, I'm just going around the top part of the poppy seed head using a thicker mix of Perylene green, by which I mean that it has a lot more pigment to water, and I'm just blending it in like this. Going around these now with that green colour, just with a mixture of the darker green, and just adding this to the top part of the poppy. Adding some more green. You can see this is actually quite similar to a sap green, so if you have got sap green you could use that. In fact, if you are struggling with the colours and you haven't got the colours that I'm using, do let me know in the comments and I will do my best to help you out if you let me know which colours you have. Okay, so I'm just carrying on putting this colour in the middle. just working around with my number 2 size brush, as you can see me doing, and just picking up some of the darker tone there. If you are enjoying this video and this is something that interests you, then you may want to consider subscribing to our channel, where we launch brand new content every Tuesday. So do consider subscribing and hitting that bell notification. That way you'll be notified when we upload new content. And you may want to give this video a big thumbs up. It's a way of letting YouTube know that you like me. Okay, so you can see here that I've added some yellow orange with some of that green colour, and I'm taking this in a kind of squiggly pattern all over the poppy head like this. This is the Cerulean green, and I'm using the same sort of pattern motion to create this kind of random pattern like this. This accentuates the bloom that we can see on the seed head. Just picking up some of that darker colour. You can see the colours that I've got mixed in my palette, and just dropping it in over the existing colour, but not taking it all the way through, just outlining some elements of it here and there. So I'm just dropping in some of the sepia mix here, and I'm using my eradicator brush from Rosemary Co to blend the colours together. So this is sepia again, and now that everything's dry, and you must make sure that everything's dry before you outline any elements, because of course if you don't, the paint will just bleed into the existing wash. So once everything's dry, you can see that I've added a little bit of sepia paint here and there on the poppy head. You can see I'm just adding a bit of detail here and there using the tip of my number 2 size brush. Remember to stay right until the end of this video, where you can pause the video and take a screenshot of the references and the line drawing that I'm going to provide you with. Just adding some detail here and there. Again, this is just sepia or the tiny bits of the green mix, or even the yellow-orange mix. It's entirely up to you. And just adding, accentuating the patterns that we've already applied. Now that we know where we're going with that paint, it's super easy to continue that process. Just patting in that colour, cleaning my brush in the tiny little puddle of water, patting my brush and then blending it through. Picking up some more of the yellow lemon colour and just adding it to the top part of the poppy, just strengthening up that yellow colour. Remember, this isn't about perfection, it's just all about getting the paint onto the paper and enjoying the process. You can see I'm just adding a bit of shadow with the Cerulean green, watered down, patting my brush dry, and this time I'm going to be outlining the top section. By doing this, it just gives a little bit of definition to the areas that you've painted. Because watercolour can retract a little bit when it's dry, this will really help it stand out. I'm adding a water glaze, so this means that I'm just adding plain water over the entire thing, and this will help blend the colours together. Using my eradicator brush just to merge those colours gently together. And if there are any areas that you feel are a little bit untidy, you can just use this to lift out any sort of smudges, or if you've gone outside the pencil line, you could use this brush to do that as well. I'm just lifting out a few bits here and there. And we're pretty much finished. Let me know what you think. Thank you for watching, and remember, here's your references and your line drawings.